What is up, hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Snipe, Celly Playoff Edition as we wrapped up the first round and moving into the second round in about 10 minutes, starting with the Battle of Florida. But no, do not adjust your link. Do not adjust your stream. If you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple Music, don't check to see if you're on the right channel. This is not an alternate universe. We are not trying to parody the multiverse of madness right now. I am Joel Fernino. I am doing the intro today. We threw you a curveball. As always, to my left, I think that is on my screen, maybe to my right on how you're looking at it or whatever. That is Dan Bradley. Dan, normally this is where, in an alternate universe, I would take your line and ask how you're doing just like you do to me, but I'm just going to go ahead, be quiet, you go ahead and take the floor, and maybe lay to rest the 2022 Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, we'll do a quick hey, hello, how are you? And after this this little eulogy here, but man, what a crash and burn moment from an organization known for crash and burn moments, from frankly a state where the sports scene is known for crash and burn moments. I mean, this Minnesota Wild season was memorable for all of the right reasons. We had Kirill Kaprizov setting the club records for goals and for points. We had all sorts of history along the way, players reaching career highs in goals and points. We had, I'm pretty sure this was the best regular season record that the Wild had, a second place finish. They got home ice in the first round and really just completely let all of that go to waste. The things that they did in the regular season to be successful, they did not do. And I think this Wild team got exposed in a lot of ways. We mentioned throughout the season that this is a Wild team that never say die attitude. This was a team that repeatedly would come back to erase deficits, often multi-goal deficits, set a record for goals scored with an extra attacker on the ice in a season. And I think that really caught up with the Wild in a lot of ways. I feel like this was a team that maybe to a degree overperformed. I know coming into the season, I had Colorado 1, St. Louis 2, and Minnesota 3 for standings order in the division. And I thought, Wild maybe could sneak up to that 2 spot, but I thought they were more likely to be in that contention with Nashville and Dallas, kind of fighting for that last playoff spot or to get to a 3rd seed rather than dogfighting with St. Louis for 2nd. So I had high hopes, and I like I said on our show 2 weeks ago, I was worried about this St. Louis team, and in particular how poorly the Wild had played against St. Louis this year. And St. Louis really showed a lot of the weaknesses within the Wild organization. Ryan Hartman, former Blackhawk, one of your favorite players to watch outside of Chicago Blackhawks jerseys. I love him. He's not really a true center, and he kind of got exposed in the faceoff dot as not being particularly good on faceoffs. The Wild special teams was atrocious and has been for a while, but this was historically really, really bad go for the Wild. If you give me a moment here, I'll get the team stats up in front of me. Wild power play did okay, 16.7%, but the penalty kill 69.2. Not nice. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. And anytime the Wild went down a man, you're sitting there thinking, oh crap, here we go again. Blues are going to score. And that really, really got the Wild in trouble. Blues through 6 games have the 4th best power play of the playoffs behind, guess who? The Avalanche, the Oilers, and the Rangers. The Blues power play was not that good during the regular season, but it was still a good power play. This was a team that Minnesota has also historically struggled against in the playoffs. So but when you look at the season as a whole, there were so many good things for the Wild. Kaprizov did not take a step back after signing his big contract. He took a massive step forward. Kevin Fiala, he went through some ups and downs, but there were a lot more ups than there were downs. And that man is going to get paid handsomely this offseason, whether that's in Minnesota or elsewhere, because the Wild are really about to get crunched, for those who don't know, by the buyouts of the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter contracts. Next year, the Wild are going to have to play, I believe it's 12-ish million below the cap next year and 14 million below the cap each of the next 2 years because of those dead cap hits. That likely means that you may lose Kevin Fiala, or you're going to have to blow up other areas of the roster to make cap room to keep Fiala. So you might be moving a guy like Matt Dumba. You might be moving, I would really hate to see this, but maybe Jonas Brodin. I wouldn't imagine that there's a scenario in the world where they would break up Zuccarello and Kaprizov, but to make dollars work, that's one of the contracts that potentially could be moved, although I would really hate to see that at this point. The Wild are going to, I think, also get worse before they get better. Just looking at what's going to happen over the next couple of years with that cap hit. You've got a lot of talented players in the system. You've got Marco Rossi, who might be the future number one center of this team. You have Jesper Wallstedt, who one of the top goaltending prospects on the planet, signed his entry-level deal. He's going to be in Iowa next year. The Iowa Wild are going to be very, very good next year, depending on how many injuries the Wild have. Yeah, I know. You started the show. You gave me time to go. I'll put a wrap on it here because we do have to get to playoff.
Longest eulogy ever.
That is not true, and you know it.
That's probably not true. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, continue. I had to bust your balls a little. Go ahead.
Point being, this Wild season was a lot of fun. It was very memorable, but at the end of the day, the only result that matters is how far did you get in the playoffs. Really, I think if the Wild had advanced to the second round but lost to Colorado, I think a lot of Wild fans would still look at this year as a win. I think losing to St. Louis, in the first round, losing twice at home when you have home ice advantage, it's a choke. And it's hard to score goals when you've got both hands around your neck instead of on your stick. And that's the case in point for the Wild in the first round. We'll call it what it was. It was a choke. That was a series that Minnesota really should have won and did not play up to their level. I don't know if there will be coaching changes as a result. We know that there's going to be roster changes just by virtue of where they're at cap-wise. But really a disappointing end to an otherwise very much enjoyable season. And I'm anxious, I think, is probably the best word to say about the future of the Wild. Recklessly optimistic, yes. Bracing for the worst, yes. Hoping that things go much better than expected, yes. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Wild. And we'll talk more about the Blues here as we get into our playoff shows. But thank you, Joel, for giving me an opportunity to kind of eulogize the Wild here and put a blue bow on the end of the season to wrap that up.
Hey, I mean, and now we get out of the depressing states coming from a totally different perspective. I'm amped up because that, quite frankly, might have been one of the best first rounds of the playoffs I have ever watched outside of any of the Hawks runs. But I mean, you needed a chance to lay to rest. I mean, it's the best Wild season I've ever watched for sure. You've been watching hockey longer than me, but still, and not to mention, I mean, hey, I'll at least attend the funeral with you for like 5 minutes because that first round pick that we get was laid to rest with the Wild. So
now it's a
second round pick, which I'll still take. But
and I'll probably talk about this more in depth on another off-season episode when we do more of a deep dive on our respective clubs. But I look at that again, and I think bringing in Marc-Andre Fleury, was it a success or a failure for a Wild? And I'll expand more on this probably once we get to the offseason as to whether it did more harm than good. But I think the goaltender management down the stretch, and in particular during that series, it's easy to look back and say, was it the right move? Was it the wrong move? I'm more leaning to the side of it was not the right move.
I was just about to jump in and say, I remember watching, I think it was which game did Talbot start first? Was it 6?
Yeah,
No,
Talbot
5.
his
5?
only start was game 6.
It was only 6. Okay, that's what I thought.
Right.
So yeah, as soon as I turned on and I watched all of game 6, and as soon as I turned on and saw that Talbot was in net, I instantly was like, dude, that's not a good sign, man. You don't do that. Now, sure, would I be eating my words if Talbot shut him out and forced a game 7? Yeah, but you don't do that on game 6 when all other 5 starts were Fleury, and arguably pretty much every loss was not his fault.
Well, not only that, but Talbot kind of got shelled by St. Louis throughout the regular season. And beyond that, you start Fleury because you gave up the draft capital to get him. You did not go out and get Fleury to not start him in the playoffs. That's why you went out and gave up a second-round pick with the condition that it could become a first-round pick, because you're expecting that he's going to be between the pipes for those elimination games. I think if they were going to give Talbot a start in the series, it should have been game 5 at home. Do we have a goal in the
No. Puck just dropped. So yes, the Battle of Florida has officially started for everybody watching and listening.
Second round is underway. Let's go.
Woo! Really loud. I'm sorry.
But the goaltender management, I think, was a big concern in that series as well, beyond just the Wild's poor special teams play. And I think the goaltender scenario is easier to figure out than the poor special teams, because the team that played as well as the Wild did, and with all the offensive weapons that they have, there's really no excuse for the power play being as bad as it was. And even more than that, a team that has historically been very, very defensively sound, but has gotten in trouble because they can't score. The defense wasn't there this series either. Every game that they lost to the Blues, they lost by at least 3 goals. That's uncharacteristic of a Wild team that is normally very defensively sound.
That was pretty surprising to me too, as well. I'm not gonna lie. But the thing is, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but I do disagree that you don't start Fleury solely because you went out and traded draft capital.
There's some sunken cost fallacy to
I
that.
I get that, but you start the absolute best goalie in your room, and that was and still is Marc-Andre Fleury.
Right. Down the stretch, Talbot had much better numbers, and I think, we saw a lot of success with Vegas the last couple of years with the rotation of starting goalies every other game.
Speaking of which, shameless plug, I'm 2-0 on calling coach firings this season, by the way.
You are. But are you going to call who's going to those coaching vacancies?
Well, we haven't really. Have we had a?
We can spend a minute to discuss here.
I don't know. I don't want to put the final shovel of dirt on the series.
Blues good, Wild bad. Second round should be fun anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. I was like, all right. I was like, I'll jump in now with the happiness that was the first round. We spent
probably 13 minutes talking about the Wild, and we're a hockey show. Yes, the Blackhawks and the Wild are our home teams, but
yeah, I would have.
You mentioned the Battle of Florida. It's underway.
It is underway.
Let's talk about how we got there too, because the only, I think, more miserable team coming out of the first round than the Wild is probably the Toronto Maple Leafs. Losing game 7 at home in overtime. Another thing we haven't even brought up yet, there were 5 game 7s in the first round of the playoffs. That's incredible.
That's why I was so absolutely that's why I had to keep the happiness out of my voice while you did your eulogy, because I understand what it's like to be like, man, everyone around you like, dude, these playoffs are sick, and I'm sitting here like, my team just lost in game 7 in overtime, don't talk to me. Like, I know how that is. Like, but yeah, and you can't. That was the coolest thing. I don't remember the last time there were 5 game 7s in one round. If they had said the stat, I really don't remember the stat though. And just every single game 7, all 5 of them were phenomenal, whether they went to overtime or not.
Yeah, we had 3 go to overtime?
Yeah.
among those
Also,
game sevens?
I'll gut check you on that. The Maple Leafs lost in regulation. They did not lose in overtime.
Oh, okay.
The two
You're right.
overtimes. The
It
two
was a
overtimes
regulation
were.
loss, but it felt like overtime with how desperate the Leafs were to get a goal at the end of that one. Oh my goodness. I really thought they were going to break through too. They had a power play where they had 9 shots late in that game, trailing by a goal.
They were buzzing, and I really did think it was. I mean, I'm not going to take away. Tampa is still the defending. They are still the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champs until they aren't. So
And
can't
that
take anything
series
away.
showed
Yeah.
they are going to be making a very good run this year, even if we'll talk about that series right now because the Florida Panthers they
Good segue.
beat the Washington Capitals in 6 games.
Kind of
Washington
expected.
really the better team for a lot of that series, but you look at an overtime game that Florida won. You look at the Caps blowing a 3-0 lead to lose 5-3 in Game 5. That really was the turning point of the series.
That was some
where you thought it really was. It crushed their spirits. Washington played about as good of a first round as I think you could ask.
Who played a better first round than the entire Capitals team, and that's I think why what made the difference was the phenom that is Carter Verhaeghe.
Yeah, you look at the Panthers team and you think guys like Barkov and Huberdeau and Ekblad being your team leaders in points. Carter Verhaeghe is second among not just he leads the team and he's second among the league in points in these playoffs so far. Really an impressive
in those
postseason run.
In those last 3 games, leading up to Game 6, he had gotten the game-winning goal in every one of them, and he had two overtime winners. I know he had 1 overtime winner. I think he had a second one too.
He had 2.
He had 2. Yeah, so he
2
had
overtime winners and 3 game-winning goals in the first round.
3. That's what it was. It was 3 game-winning goals in the first round. 2 of them were OTs. That's right. Yes.
So he's got 6 goals for Verhaeghe does, and that's third or fourth rather. There are 3 players ahead of him. Can you name the 3 players that right now have more playoff goals in these playoffs than Carter Verhaeghe? I'll give you a hint. 2 of them have been eliminated.
Oh, Kaprizov.
Kaprizov is 1.
And is he top right now? Is he leading the playoffs even though now he's out?
Kaprizov is second.
Oh, he's second. Okay.
Kaprizov is tied for second.
And the
first. You have first and tied for second. First is also eliminated.
Wow. That would probably then be. Oh. Matthews.
Not Matthews.
Marner.
Not Marner. Jake Gensel.
Oh, that's right.
Gensel has 8. Kaprizov has 7.
That's
and then the active leader is the other Kane, Evander, with 7.
Yeah, that's out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been playing with Connor McDavid, and of course, McDavid leads the league with 14 points in 7 playoff games.
I mean, to quote, I forgot who told him in the handshake line to quote him, bro, you're fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was Danault, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Philip Danault in the handshake line, they got him. They lip read him walking up to McDavid and just going, "Dude, you're fucking awesome." Like, yes, Philip Danault is literally all of us watching Connor McDavid on a night-in basis.
Without a doubt. Bringing it back to this series though, with Verhaeghe and with how well Florida played in the first round, in particular, battling back. Before the season started, I said Florida to the Cup final. I don't think I've been more nervous for a team that I picked to win in the playoffs than against the 2-time defending champs, than against their in-state rivals, and especially with some of the shakiness that Florida had in the first round. They didn't look quite like the team that was as poised. Joel, who do you have in this series?
I'm glad you mentioned that too, and there was a method to me bringing up Verhaeghe. Yeah, Verhaeghe, and he had a quote on what's it called, The Point on ESPN with Bucci, and he mentioned, he brought up exactly what you brought up. Like you could tell that the nerves were there. They did not look like the juggernaut that they were in the regular season. And I'm with you. I mean, I picked him to win the cup. Obviously, you have more because you picked him at the beginning of the season. I did it maybe more than halfway through the season, but they're my pick to win the cup still. And here's the thing. I was nervous. I'm like, dude, there's no way that they're going to choke this away when they were such a damn good team. They're so well coached. They are deep. And Verhage said it, that it was that kind of first round nerves, which makes sense to me. And he basically said, he's like, we got through the first round. Obviously it wasn't pretty, but we all feel a hell of a lot more confident moving on to the second round, and we kind of shook those nerves by getting the job done in the first round. Like last year, they couldn't do that. Obviously, they lost to the eventual Cup champs last year in the first round, but I think that's a big part.
Well, too, that for Florida, that's the first playoff series win since 1996. So it's been a long time coming. It has been a long time coming for Panthers fans. I'd have to look at the roster. Are there players on that team who were not born the last time the Panthers won a playoff series?
I'd have to look at the roster, but I have to
on the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, I would have to say. Oh yeah, I would have to. And hold on, it's not on ESPN. They don't do. TNT gives out good stats. ESPN gives out weird stats.
That's true. ESPN does get kind of weird with some of them.
So TNT taking their rightful place.
But at least to bring this one back, you've got the 2-time defending champ. You've got the President's Trophy winner. Who are you taking to win this series and why?
I'm not going to feel as confident as I felt about taking them to beat the Capitals. They did it, but it was, what did I say? I said that the Capitals would get one game, and I said they might steal a second game. So I kind of right on that. That was right. I mean, it was in 6, but I still think I kind of stand with Verhage, and not just because he said it, on the show and everything. Like, I was thinking it the same way. Like, they shook the cobwebs off. They got the job done. The monkey off their back, their proverbial monkey off their back, winning that first round series. I think Florida does it. I think Florida slays the dragon, exercises the demons of last season, of first round last year. And I think they take this momentum, and I think they win this series. I think it's in 7. Again, I definitely think this goes to 7.
We should be so lucky.
Oh, dude, if the Battle of Florida goes to 7, like, if we get if this second round has, obviously you can't have 5 game 7s, but if the second round has at least 2 game 7s and one of them is the Battle of Florida, this could be one of the best playoffs I think we've ever watched.
Yeah, I think looking at the top level teams this year compared to years past, I mean, every team in the Eastern Conference had at least 100 points going into the playoffs. That's never happened before in the history of the NHL. Mm-hmm. You have a couple of teams at the top of the Western Conference from the regular season: Colorado, Calgary, and St. Louis. That's 1. St. Louis was 3 and Calgary was 4 in the standings. That's very good. Very good numbers as well. So those teams that you have here in the second round, it's a stacked field, and there's very little separating those teams. And I think the 5 game 7s in the first round is pretty solid evidence of that.
Seriously, and it's just so fun. Like, this is so good for the game. Like, I want every game to go to game 7. I don't even care. Mm-hmm. Except the Blues. I want them to get swept. Anyway.
Speaking of those Blues, this is the only series where neither team went to game 7 in the first round. Every other series has at least one team that went 7 games. Colorado quickly kicked Nashville to the curb.
Get those brooms out.
Much like Daryl Sutter said that, whoever plays Colorado in the first round, it's going to be a quick 8 days and not very fun.
He was right.
He was exactly right. St. Louis Blues advancing, as we mentioned earlier, in 6 games over the Minnesota Wild. winning each of their games by at least 3 goals. Joel, I'm actually really excited for this series too, even though the Blues beat the Wild. And yeah, it would be nice to see them lose, but also the Avalanche have been kind of bigger rivals with Minnesota
Yeah, I was going
lately.
to say that they're kind of your Blues when you're not playing
A,
us
a, a
and
little
stuff like
bit.
that.
So there's and I feel like it's kind of a full out rivalry throughout the Central through those teams. Like Chicago has Minnesota and St. Louis. St. Louis is still going to be number 1.
Yep, but
But
then Minnesota's right there
Minnesota is
too.
very solidly in that number 2 spot.
Right.
Minnesota, with all of those teams right now, you get the hate with Chicago from the end of that first run. You get St. Louis from the playoffs. You get Colorado from the playoffs. Now you got Blues Avalanche. That is going to be a very fast and very physical series.
And if I remember correctly, the regular season matchups this year between these two were pretty chippy. They don't like each other very much.
No, they do not.
Yeah.
That is very fair to say.
I too, I'm right there with you. I am so pumped for this. Well, maybe due in part just because Colorado was so fun to watch, and it's been like over a week since we've watched them play playoff hockey because they swept Nashville. But I'm so pumped for this because it's obviously going to be a lot closer than Colorado playing Nashville. And I'm excited. I'm glad game 1 is tonight because I don't want to wait any longer. I really want to see how the feel out game 1 process goes for these two teams because they are, in a way, pretty damn different play styles. You know, Colorado is fast, speedy, can score, but also can defend. But it's almost like their defense comes from their offense at the same time. I mean, they don't play in their own end a lot. Will we see that change with the Blues? I don't know. But also with the Blues, and don't hate me here. I'm just telling it like it is here. I'm not even throwing pot shots at the Wild, but the Blues are a good team. I can't. It even hurts. I get a little sharp taste in my mouth when I say that, but they are a good team. You can't knock them. They are great defensively. Goaltending is starting to pick itself back up at the right time, especially Ville Husso. I mean, they're lucky they have him because I don't think, Binnington was obviously a huge question mark during the regular season, and now, they have Husso. Am I saying that right? Husso? Husso? Okay.
Husso.
So they're lucky they have him, in my opinion. Granted, Binnington showed up too.
And Binnington, I think, turned the tide of that series. Honestly,
I think Binnington's just a playoff goaltender. Like he definitely helped. He was in the Conn Smythe conversation when they won their cup. I wouldn't say he was number 2. He wasn't runner up, but he was top 5 for sure.
I mean, I would even say during their cup run, you would have O'Reilly, who won it. You would have Binnington, Rask, and Pietrangelo. There's your top 4, and you can kind of pick and choose whatever order you want among those 4. But that really was the best of the best that year.
Right.
And Binnington then lost 9 straight playoff games coming into that start against Minnesota. And when you see that kind of stat, I saw that stat come up and that Binnington was getting the start, it was, oh shit, here we go again. The Wild are going to be the team that implodes and breaks that. And that really was what it was. So
exactly. So, and again, that's kind of where I'm getting at. I'm not taking a shot at the Wild, but I think ultimately it did come down to experience. The Blues have a cup in recent years. They've been there. Most of their team is pretty much intact. They've obviously made changes with Pietrangelo leaving and, getting Torrey Krug and their young rookie. What the hell's his name? I forgot.
Perunovich?
No. Maybe not rookie, but what's his name?
Forward, defenseman.
Forward.
Kyrou.
Thank you.
Jordan breakout year. Yeah.
Jordan Kyrou with his breakout
year.
But
we should mention Perunovich as well, though. B-boy, Minnesota Duluth, baby.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the thing. Like the team hasn't turned over too much since 2019, since their cup. They've been there. There is something to be said for they've been there before, and the Wild have not. The Wild were finally where they were supposed to be this year. They showed up. They did what everyone thought they were going to do this regular season. They did it. Then they got to the playoffs. I'm not really going to say it was a choke job per se
Well,
because they
you can
ran
call
it.
it a choke. You can call it a choke. I wouldn't be
You know,
offended or mad.
as much as I love making fun of you, I don't even know if I would call it a choke, to be honest. Like, I think I would ultimately after all this is said and done, but I'm not soul set on, look, they choked, they screwed up, like they should be
They lost to
ashamed.
a good team that was
Exactly.
separated by 2 points in the standings in the regular season.
I'll take a shot at myself. They didn't go ahead and runner up the President's Trophy and then get swept in the first round.
Yeah, there is that.
That's
fair.
They didn't tie their franchise record in regular season wins and then get swept in the first round. They didn't do that.
We can take a shot at Tampa Bay and say that they didn't win the President's Trophy, tie the best regular season record of all time,
Exactly.
and then get swept
Exactly.
by Columbus, who had never won a playoff series to that point.
But now, even to that effect, Tampa had never won yet when that happened. They were obviously a juggernaut, and they were continuing to go. They had been when we beat them, obviously, so they had at least gone there. But that's the whole thing. This was experience versus inexperience. There's no other way to put it.
What's the lightning copy pasta that we don't have any words and we know you don't want to hear them?
Yeah, exactly.
that was the mood
that was
in
great.
the Wild camp.
And I'm exactly. So it came down to the Blues beat a team that did not have the experience. They had the skill, but they did not have the playoff experience for the most part up and down their lineup, other than Marc-Andre Fleury, who, for all intents and purposes, pretty much stood on his head most of that series.
He played pretty well. He did have some.
Yeah, he had a couple that he'd want back. Yeah,
but you look at it as a whole.
The man's
goaltending did not sink the Wild.
No, exactly.
A poor penalty kill sank the Wild. And I think looking at the playoffs here, you've got the Avalanche with a 43% power play in the playoffs. St. Louis, fourth in the NHL on the power play during the playoffs. Every one of their regular season matchups, we saw at least 7 goals. Right. I got to think you're taking the over pretty much every game in this series, and we're going to see a lot of goals.
Oh, easily. I do think, though, well, we'll get into this, but you did ask me who I am taking. But I agree with you. I do. It's going to be hard to not take the over, but in game ones, I actually might hammer the under for a lot of these game ones in the second round. Because now I think we're going to see what I had mentioned in the last episode, where those game ones are usually those feel out processes and you try to see what you can do to break through. Then after game one, I think all bets are off. We will start seeing some overs.
Well, and with that time off as well, Blues winning in 6, Avalanche winning in 4, so many other teams going to game 7, are they rested or are they rusted? Have they, because they didn't play in a while, weren't in that routine, might we see them shaking off some of the rust in game 1?
Exactly. Especially Colorado, even though obviously, St. Louis went in 6, but there's something to be said for when you sweep, it's not always the best thing. Sometimes that's a little bit of a curse in a way. But I ultimately... I'm not doing this with my heart because obviously I would love to see the Blue. I'm not picking with my heart here. I'm still picking normally here. Obviously, I want to see the Blues get completely swept and just have their run go down in a giant heaping fiery zeppelin of just tears and sadness. But aside from that, I do think Colorado does win this series. And obviously Colorado has something to prove, man. They have a monkey on their back this round. They are the second round losers of the last few years. They make it to the second round and then they screw it up like they always do. I think this year they finally get through there and they finally make it to the conference finals. I'm going to take the Avs. I'm going to say in 6, but I can see it going 7, but I'll stick with 6.
I have Avs in 6 in this one as well. I think just for everything that you just said, plus I think just as a whole, now that this team has had some time to get rested and get some guys who are banged up, get them healthy, Colorado needed to make short work of Nashville. They got that job done.
Yep.
And can really carry a lot of momentum through, not just through this series.
We have our first goal of the second round, and it belongs to the Panthers.
Was it Carter Verhaeghe?
I'm checking right now. There's no legal shit going on here, right? I can say this. All right.
No, you can say it. We are not retransmitting the game, so we are not in violation of the rebroadcasting or retransmitting without express written consent of the NHL. So we are all good here.
We are not. It was not Carter Verhaeghe. Oh my God, my old boy! It was Anthony Duclair.
There we go. Had a kid.
God,
Anthony
I love
Duclair.
seeing him just flourish. I loved when we got him in the trade. It didn't work out because Colleton's a piece of shit. Now I love seeing that kid flourish. He was so cool. He was so fun to watch when he was here.
And that is his first goal of the playoffs.
Yep.
6 points now through. This is his 6th game. He only played 5 games in the opening round.
Yep.
So good on you, Anthony Duclair. First goal of the second round. 1-0 lead for the Panthers. I think Avalanche in 6 here. I think this is a team that matches up well with St. Louis. 1, 2 out of 3 in the regular season, but they were close games.
Yeah.
I do think St. Louis will take a game or two. I think they'll probably win. I think it'll be games 3 and 4. I think Colorado wins games 1 and 2 at home. Blues win 3 and 4.
So you think the stereotypical kind of home ice
thing. Back and forth.
I can see that.
But with the Avs really pushing through for that momentum in Game 6 to win on the road,
I can see that.
They really are the best team in the Western Conference.
Hands down.
And I don't think there's too much debate in that, unless you're a Blues fan or a Calgary fan or even a Stars fan now that they got through that first round series, which was also incredible.
Jake Ottinger is he's not human. I'm convinced he is a robot.
We would be remiss if we did not talk about Ottinger in that series.
That was not just that series, that Game 7 alone. That Game 7 was the best goaltending performance I have ever watched.
He put on a clinic.
When I looked up at that shot clock going into overtime, dude.
Yeah, he had 50 saves in regulation.
And he finished with, what was it, 56 saves total? Yeah.
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah. And really, there were a lot of times where I was like, dude, Dallas is going to do it on the back of Jake Ottinger. But it did not happen. I was not surprised either.
It did not.
Is that a good segue?
Point being that Colorado is the cream of the crop in the Western Conference. And honestly, I think anything short of reaching the Stanley Cup final is a failure for them this year.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to tomorrow night. We've got the Rangers, who down 3-1 in their series to Pittsburgh, came back and won. We've got Carolina, who went back and forth with Boston and won in Game 7. Joel, why don't you break down? You had a pretty good stat on this one.
Yeah, so I feel like everyone has seen this. This is probably one of the coolest stats to come out of the first round madness that it was. So the Rangers are actually the first team in NHL history to win a series by claiming 3 consecutive comeback wins when facing elimination. So like you said, they were down 3-1 in the series. In Game 5, they were also down 2-0, but eventually won 5-3. Then in Game 6, they were also down 2-0 and eventually won, you guessed it, 5-3. And then, of course, Game 7, they were down 3-2 late too, actually, which really made me nervous. I was like, dude, they blew it. They blew it like they usually do, but they obviously won in overtime 4-3 on the Breadman's absolutely disgusting snipe.
Which former Blackhawk? I'm going to ask you this one. Which former Blackhawk are you rooting for the most in the playoffs right now?
That's honestly a tough question.
It is. That's why I asked it.
Because
we asked hard questions on this show.
There are a lot of them. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to pull this up. You can gut check me. I'm pretty sure every single team left in the playoffs right now has at least 2 ex-Blackhawks on the team.
Well, let's think here. Colorado would be Sod.
No.
No.
St. Louis.
St. Louis would be Sod. Sorry.
It's not just Sod either. It's Sod and I was surprised to see this. It's Sod and I have to look it up. But outside of that, you got
Colorado. Who would be the one for Colorado?
That's the one that I wasn't sure. That's why I think I might get gut checked. I don't think
Tampa Bay has Hagel. Florida Duclair. Rangers Panarin. Carolina
Tavo.
Tavo.
Oh, and then there's also, excuse me, was it
was TVR? Did he play for Trevor Van Riemsdyk? Was he in Chicago, or am I?
Oh yeah, no, he was in Chicago.
Mm.
He won 2015 Cup with us.
Okay.
But also, this one was kind of funny. On the Rangers, I'll double check, but on the Rangers, Tyler Mott.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Edmonton, Duncan Keith.
Duncan Keith, exactly.
And Calgary.
That one might be the other one. That might be the other one that gut checks me. I might be. So
at
either way,
least 6.
Exactly. So which ones of my? It's tough. I feel like it's a tie between Panarin and Keith. Solely because I don't want to see Tampa three-peat. Otherwise, I would say Hagel, because that kid deserves to win a cup. But it's a tie for me between Duncan Keith and Panarin. Probably more so Panarin. Keith's got his, but also I want to see McDavid and Draisaitl win a cup too. So it literally teeters. So it's literally a 50-50 split for me.
Yeah, I that's fair. I don't know who I would have guessed for you to say on that one, and I apologize. Are you hearing notifications?
A couple.
Yeah. I don't know what is going on here.
They're reaching out about your car's extended warranty, aren't they?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. No, it's work stuff blowing up in the background here. So I think I've got that shut off now. We should be good. Rangers Hurricanes. This is going to be a fun series. I think the Tony DeAngelo factor is one of the storylines here that we have to consider as well.
Yeah.
The Rangers being the team that kicked DeAngelo to the curb, Carolina being the team that picked him up. Oh, absolutely rightfully so. He was a cancer to that locker room.
And not to mention, if you're looking at me, if you're holding up 2 players and, hey, you're going to only keep one of these guys, regardless of kicking him to the curb. Keep Adam Fox or Tony DeAngelo. You think I'm picking about 3 million times out of 10 Adam Fox.
So I think there's going to be a bit of a revenge factor for both teams. The Rangers want to, prove that they didn't need DeAngelo to win, and DeAngelo is going to try and stick it to his old team. I think there's going to be some of that hostility there.
He ain't going to be that big of a factor.
Maybe. I mean, he was a decent.
He was a decent factor in the first round.
Decent factor in the first round of the playoffs there.
If I'm correct, I think he actually had a goal or 2.
He had 1 goal, but he is tied for the lead in points.
That's it. He was basically assisting everything.
And how weird is this that the 2 points leaders are both defensemen, Tony DeAngelo and Jacob Slavin for Carolina. So a team that has Niederreiter, Teravainen, Aho, Svechnikov, a lot of offensive weapons.
Svechnikov.
It's Slavin and DeAngelo who are leading that team in playoff points right now.
Right, exactly.
And then you go ahead and you switch things over to look at the Rangers side of the equation. Adam Fox, 10 points, 3 goals, 7 assists through 7 games. Mika Zibanejad, 11 points. That's your team lead there.
God, that dude is so good.
Panarin, Andrew Kopp, and Chris Kreider all tied with 7 points. I think this is a really evenly matched series, and I'm going to need to let you talk for a minute because I think this one's going to go to 7, and I need to really think about who I'm going to pick for a winner here.
No, I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of a mutual thing. It's really tough. Like, I have my wants. Like, I want the Rangers to win this just because I was so happy to see the Rangers get it. Just seeing I kept saying this, and I know like there were a couple like Chicago sports guys that went to the game 7 out in MSG. Just listening and hearing and watching MSG just explode and just have that energy, for me, it makes me miss the Hawks dynasty days because that's exactly how the United Center was for those 10 years. But that's a want. But actually thinking about it, like, dude, I don't know how you beat the Hurricanes. Like, look, the Rangers are good, but they can be sloppy at times. And and again, they got the job done. They won game 7. but their big stars can disappear at literally random times. The only one that pretty much and that's even me talking about my boy. Artemi Panarin is amazing, but he can sometimes disappear for a game, and only one game can make the difference. Luckily, that's the thing too. He kind of disappeared and was pretty much non-existent a lot of Game 7, and then finally, in about the late third period, and then obviously in overtime, finally he broke through. Right. Dude, this is gonna be offensively. If we take defense out of the equation here, which is kind of hard to do with just especially Carolina, but it's a little hard to do in general with both teams. Offensively, dude, this could be a bloodbath.
I think so too, and I think one other factor to this equation is how good we saw goaltending wise Freddie Anderson and Igor Shesterkin in the regular season. Shesterkin probably going to win the Vezina Trophy. I'd be really surprised at this point if he didn't. And then Freddie Anderson was a snub of a finalist, frankly.
Right.
Probably should have been in there over Saros.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see that he didn't make one of the finalist spots. I still think it's Shesterkin's to lose. But looking at these teams, I mean, there's very, very little to separate them.
You did,
and even though Anderson has been out, Antti Raanta has been playing very well in his stead.
There's another ex-Blackhawk.
Yeah, Raanta, there you go.
Yeah.
So there we've got Carolina covered. I said Rangers before the playoffs started over Carolina.
Did you?
I'm still going to take them. But I really don't feel I did.
No, I believe you. Now you got to make me check who I took.
I had Panthers Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I had Calgary and Colorado in the Western Conference Finals.
Mm-hmm.
So, anywho, while you're looking that up, and while we mentioned Calgary, we can talk about that series as well. The Oilers and the Flames. Oilers and Flames both needed Game 7 to advance. Edmonton, some offensive explosions throughout their series with the Kings. They put up 9 in a playoff game.
That's so crazy.
That's unheard of in today's NHL.
To me, the only reason they went to Game 7 was because Mike Smith was terrible up until Game 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the fact that
and I guess Game 6.
They're kind of dragging Mike Smith along for the ride almost. Like, you need a goaltender who can steal you a game in the playoffs.
You do. You're not going to win a Stanley Cup without a goaltender that can bail you out and your defenseman out. Even you can be defensively just a brick wall, such as Carolina or such as most of the time Colorado. You can be that kind of defensive team, but if you don't have that goalie back there to back you up when inevitably there's going to be a mistake or there's going to be a breakaway, you're not going to win the Stanley Cup.
And this is not 10 years ago Mike Smith that dragged the Coyotes to the conference finals.
Right.
This is well past his prime.
Though he looked like it in Game 7, but he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that consistently.
No, he's really not. We have the Battle of Alberta on the noted side of the border.
How did we not even introduce that?
Yeah. Because I just tried to segue because you were talking about Calgary.
You're right.
But yes, we should mention we've got north of the border, we've got the Battle of Alberta.
Finally.
On the U.S. side of the border, we've got the Battle of Florida. And then we've got 2 other phenomenal series with Blues Colorado and with Rangers Carolina. It's going to be an incredible second round.
We got the Battle of Alberta.
This series, I think, is going to be a gong show. And as physical as we talked about Blues and Colorado might be, this series is going to be even more so. I think Calgary met a Dallas Stars team that really matched up well against them. I don't see Edmonton matching up as well against Calgary, just in the styles and systems that they play. I think Calgary is the better team in this series, and I think it will be I think we may see this one in 5. I'm not going to say a Calgary sweep, just because I would never bet against a team that had Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to get swept. And that's just a very, very hard thing to predict. And you don't feel good betting against them over the course of that series. However, I think Calgary's the better team here. I think it's more likely to be a 5-game series than a 6 or a 7, solely because of that Mike Smith factor and just the defensive systems that Calgary plays. I think it'll be a matchup nightmare for Edmonton here.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that one. I mean, it's God, I would love to see Edmonton pull this out. I think that's another kind of they made it through the first round, although they had trouble with a good Kings team, but an injured Kings team, a Kings team without Drew Doughty.
Yeah, how different is that series if Drew Doughty and Sean Walker are healthy?
Right, exactly. And I mean, they did, go against a Kings team of, where Jonathan Quick was resurrecting from the ashes. But
yeah, I don't know where that kind of performance came from. Some
playoffs,
of those games he was playing. Yeah,
some goalie names and playoffs just go together well. But I'm right there with you. I mean, by the way, I did look it up. I also actually had the Hurricanes in 7.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Rangers.
The Rangers?
Okay. Yeah, I did. I really thought I thought I didn't, but whatever. So this round or this series, this matchup though, like, I actually this was the one where I went a little different, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Offensive explosion, ride the McDavid Draisaitl wave. The Oilers got through, and they are going to the conference final. That's what I put on my original picks. On this show, I gotta go Calgary.
You can stick to your guns. I wouldn't blame you for sticking to your guns.
It's so tough. Here, all right. You know what? I'm glad you said that. For anyone listening who wants any sort of betting tips on the series, take Calgary. Like Dan said, take them in about 5. I actually think 6. I definitely could see, obviously, I definitely see Calgary winning it, but I'm going to say in 6. I think Edmonton can take 2 pretty definitively, especially with the offense they have. With all that said, yes, I'm sticking to my guns. And you know what? The Oilers are going to somehow pull it through, and they are going to take this series in 7. But it's going to be one of those crazy, like, Calgary's probably going to win the first, 2 games of the series. Then Edmonton's going to take 1 to make it 2-1. And then I think this is going to be one of those 3-1 deficit comebacks.
Wow. Joel, that might be the
hot take
you've ever made on this show.
And I'm probably going to be wrong, but you know what? Do it for the bit.
I mean,
Oilers for the bit.
If you always take chalk, life is boring.
Exactly.
You got to go against the grain sometimes.
Yeah, and maybe I'll bet that. I won't win money, but if I do win money, it's a sizable amount of money.
You should win a good amount of money at that point.
Exactly. And I say that as I'm looking at, the Jacob Markstrom's #1 in goals against average in the playoffs right now.
Oh yeah, he's good. That's putting it nicely. A 1.53 goals against, 943 save percentage. He's stupid good.
Yeah, it's I don't feel good about sticking to my guns, but screw it, I'm sticking to my guns.
Get this, the only other, or I guess there are 2 other goaltenders who have a better save percentage, equal or better save percentage in the first round than Markstrom. One is Jordan Binnington, who only played 3 games, and the other, Jake Ottinger, who went toe-to-toe with Markstrom in that series. So,
right.
So to recap picks, Joel is taking Edmonton in the second round. I'm taking Calgary. We are both in on the Rangers, but neither one of us feels super confident in that pick.
Not at all.
Both taking Colorado. and both taking Florida. So,
Oh, you did take Florida.
yeah.
I must have not. I must have been looking at something when you did that.
Yeah. Well, they were, like I said all year, they've been my pick all year.
Oh, duh.
I'm
Right.
sticking to my guns. There,
Yeah.
that's my pick.
Dude, it's the revenge. It's the revenge series, man.
Well, Joel, it's about that time. Our
No.
our favorite segment of the week, the way we like to close out every show, 2 minutes for roughing. We put this one up to a fan vote last week. You won the fan vote and did your 2 minutes for roughing. I'm on it this week. So would you be so kind just to put a couple minutes up there on the clock for me and vamp for a moment?
I can do that, yes. And actually, I was even going to offer to take it again because I actually had something. It's not like an anger thing. It would have been like a, it would have been like a look. Enough of this take, and I'll bring it up after you're done because it'll be too old by the time
All
next
right.
week rolls around. All right, ready?
All right.
3, 2, 1.
You mentioned things that are okay, enough of this. That's going to be what
Oh,
this 2 minutes for roughing is about.
okay.
There are too many damn streaming services these days. Between Hulu, Netflix, you have Amazon streaming services, HBO Plus, freaking CNN has a streaming service. What kind of streaming service do I want to watch on CNN? It is ridiculous. And as we get through all of these different
Is
deals,
this really
whether
happening?
it's really happening, whether there are movies, whether there are TV shows, whether whatever, whether it's live sporting events, you need 10,000 different streaming sites to be able to watch all of the content that you want to watch. And it gets to the point where it's like, how is this supposed to be cheaper than cable? That's why it first came about, was these streaming services were meant to replace cable and be a cheaper alternative. Now, I understand there needs to be market competition. That's the way the economy works. You have to have multiple interests competing for the best product. But like, CNN doesn't need a streaming platform. We don't need every single
I agree with.
we don't need every single content platform to have a streaming service. Paramount Plus, we don't need that. It's insane. And as more and more continue to come out and really not hit it successful, I'm worried about what that's going to mean for the future of cinema. How does that relate further down the road when these streaming services are like, well, this is how we're going to make our money, is with subscription-based services rather than releasing things into theaters or to a mass audience. When you are selectively narrowing your product like that, everything waters down as a whole. Too many streaming sites, cut it down, get rid of half of them, at least.
Sorry, everybody, for whoever's listening. Dan Bradley's actually back in his seat. That grandfather that was just here walked away.
You can say whatever you want about that. I think there's too many, and I
mean,
don't
I'm
want to
with
pay
you.
for 8,000 streaming services to be able to watch like the 5 or 6 things that I want to watch.
Well, I mean, I'm with you on, like, I don't know why the hell CNN does it. Like, that's just stupid. Nobody watches any major news outlet anyway that is below the age of like 50. So it doesn't even. Why the hell are you trying to join the streaming community at that point? Like, so I'm definitely with you on that. But like, I mean, yeah, are there a lot? Yeah, but like they get wrapped up into bundles, right? Like Disney Plus gets ESPN Plus along with Hulu, and that gives you a lot of what you probably want or need. Netflix.
It doesn't, because if I'm cutting, for example, so I live in Ohio. If I want to watch, you're not wrong. If I want to watch Blue Jackets games, I cannot watch them on ESPN Plus. They're blacked out.
Yeah, now I'm with you. I hate the blackout. We had a 2 minutes.
We had a whole different 2 minute for roughing.
Yes, I'm with you. That is stupid, but every single state does it. Chicago and city. I'm sorry, Chicago does it. However, the difference there is because of the deals they make with those local cable deals. Which, again, I'm not defending it, but from a business perspective, I get it. Because like for me, it's like I can't watch the Hawks on ESPN Plus when they're on ESPN Plus this year, being the first year.
Yeah,
But
that's the
they
other
are
one. Why
on
can't we watch the games that are airing on ESPN Plus?
because they're probably using that traffic for a different stream. What are you saying? Like if the game
Like
is
if the game is
aired,
on ESPN proper, you can't watch it on ESPN Plus.
probably because the traffic is going elsewhere for whatever else they're putting on ESPN Plus that day. Also, there is still something to be said. Like cable itself probably isn't ever going to totally die. Probably be on life support, but it's still going to remain around for quite a while. And there's always something to be said for that prime time viewing. Like more people, I think, still have cable because now you get these things that like it's included. Like me, I mean, people know I bought a condo and in my HOA, my cable's included, so I have cable. Like it's just there. So it's just one of those things. I'm with you. There's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I think Netflix might get the axe from me once Stranger Things 4 is done, or once Stranger Things is totally over. But
well, yeah, Netflix saying, "Hey, we're going to raise our rates. Oh, by the way, we're also going to make it against the rules for you to share passwords, and if you do that, we'll just cancel your account." That.
By the way, too, like every other streaming platform is so much cheaper than them.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even close.
They're continuing to just grow and grow and grow, and they also produce really good shit. While Netflix
Netflix is taking a step back, a big step back. I think that's a good place to wrap it up for tonight.
I did have my one take.
Oh, go ahead, do that.
It's 30 seconds. I know we got to get going, but what it would have been is I saw a poll that got me thinking about this. Now, this poll, mind you, was in favor of the NHL, and I'll get there. 83% of, I think it was like over 4,500 votes. It was 83% to the NHL, but the poll was like, what playoffs are better, NHL or NBA? And I'm like, there is no argument here. Why are you even trying to make that argument?
Yeah.
Did you see the Game 7 NBA games this weekend?
Where you have one player basically outscoring an entire team over the course of the half.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That what at the half it was like 57-20. Like
it was
something
insane.
like that. Either way, I was just like, there is no contest here, and that poll I saw that said it showed that. I'm like, stop with this narrative. I understand hockey will always be number 4 of the 4 big sports, but when it comes to actual product being put out there in the playoffs, the NHL is always and will always be king.
Maybe we had you start off the show. Do you want to end the show? Do the show close? Thank the
I could.
Well, do that whole bit.
I could do that.
Go for it. We'll give it to you. All yours.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That is a wrap on this playoff edition of Pod Snipe Celly. We want to thank Noop Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network for being our platform and being gracious hosts for us to let us talk about what we love every single day and let
There's
you guys...
a streaming platform that isn't excessive.
Exactly. And, this is on social media and Twitch. Again, that's a good segue. You can watch it for free on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram?
Not on Instagram, but
never mind.
Because this would be too long to show for Instagram Live.
Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. And obviously, if you were not able to join us live, go ahead and stream us after the show on Spotify and Apple Music. Thank you all again. For Dan Bradley, I am Joel Fernino. Have a great round 2, everybody.
Bye.